Hi, my name is Mike Arnold. I'm the Baptist minister at Long Eaton Baptist Church in England. And welcome. I'm so pleased you were here to listen to my story. I'd been sent to Sunday school for about a year, not because Mum and Dad were particularly religious, but because they wanted a quiet Sunday afternoon. It was okay, and in some respects it was fun. But most of all, I learned that Jesus loves me. Then, one October morning in 1977, my house caught fire. I got out of the house by jumping from the upstairs bedroom window. Mum and my brothers weren't as fortunate. Mum fell out of the bedroom window that I had just jumped out of, and she broke her back. They found my brother David, who was 3 years old, curled up in my mother's bed. He had died of smoke poisoning. My brother Tony, who's 11 years old, had discovered that David hadn't yet gone out and gone looking for him. He walked out of the front door in a ball of flame. He suffered third-degree burns over 90% of his body. I remember sitting at his feet as we were taken to the local hospital. He screamed in agony all the way there. That was the last I saw of him. He died 5 days later. I didn't step into a church again for 20 years. I asked myself, what kind of loving God would do that to my brother? And on the basis of that question alone, I became an atheist. I never considered myself open to any sort of belief. I would argue with Christians at every opportunity. When my partner became a Christian, it nearly broke our relationship. I would argue with her every time she went to church. I didn't want to know God, and I didn't want her to know God either. But then I met her friends, Keith and Denise. My partner had gone to their house whilst I was working late. She called me at midnight to come and pick her up. When I arrived at their house, I was absolutely fuming. Had they mentioned God or Jesus or church, I would just have erupted at them. And I was waiting for them to do just that. But they offered me a cup of coffee and just simply talked to me. No mention of God at all. I gotta be fair, I was disappointed and somewhat deflated. Over the next several months, I made it my mission to show them how foolish they were to believe in God. I visited them every day, questioning them, often arguing with them. To be honest, I didn't even want to know the answers. After several months, Keith had had enough. Finally, he realized that after all of the discussions, he wasn't getting anywhere. And so he asked me, "What are you holding against God?" That evening, I poured my heart out to Keith, telling him my story. You're fortunate you've had this for a couple of minutes. Keith had it that night for over 5.5 hours. And what struck me was that he seemed to genuinely care. "Would you mind if I prayed with you?" he asked. "If you think it'll do any good," I said, "go for it." So Keith prayed. A couple of weeks later, he asked me how I was doing. I said I felt really peaceful, and he laughed at me. "Wasn't that what I prayed for?" he said. When I prayed, I'd said, "Lord, this boy has never known peace. Will you give him peace?" At those words, I knew my gig was up. It was like a thunderclap going off in my chest. If a prayer can be answered, there must be someone there who is able to answer prayer. And that night, for the first time, I turned to the Lord and I prayed, "If you are really there, would you sort me out?" Since then, I'm pleased to say the Lord has indeed taken me up on my request and been sorting me out. It turned out the stitches weren't the only injury I received that morning back in 1977. It had also affected me mentally, and I had struggled with PTSD for over 20 years. As a result, I had fallen out with most of my family. I hadn't talked to my mother in over 10 years, and my sister had barely spoken to me in years as well. I found it very difficult to make friends and maintain friendships. Periodically, I suffered from depression, and I was ruled by anger and guilt. The Lord has set me free from all of it. First, he took my guilt and the anger. I've not suffered with depression for over 20 years now. Then he restored my relationships, giving back to me my mother and my sister. He has enabled me to make friends, and I now have many friends. Then, to my surprise, he called me into ministry. And for the last 15 years, I've been ministering as a Baptist minister. And as a minister, I've used all of my experiences to reach and to support other hurting people. So what advice would I give someone who is curious? Well, believe it or not, and I didn't, it's all true. Now I know it is. You don't have to meet God halfway. You just have to be open up your heart to him and take one step toward him, and he'll meet you exactly where you are. You may have lots of questions, and that's great. I would encourage you to keep asking them. Be open. Don't let your questions stop you from taking that first step. Who knows? That first step may be the answer you've been looking for all along. So you might be listening to me now as a Christian who is witnessing to your unbelieving friends, wondering, how am I going to do this? Well, my advice to you is don't preach to them. Don't even mention to them that, don't mention to them about Jesus or God. They know that you're a Christian, and they are keyed into the fact that you are going to want to proselytize them. And I wouldn't. I would meet them as fellow human beings and just talk to them about anything and everything. I would listen to their stories and get to know them. And then when you've earned the respect that you need, they will listen to you. And in my experience, they are eager to ask you questions. Just give them the time to get to that point where they feel comfortable enough to do that. And then it's like the gloves have come off, the door is open, and you are free rein to say what you want. So be patient, be kind, be respectful, and then let the Lord work in what he wants to do in them.